Hi, my name is Paulo Stagnaro. I'm a bassist. I've been playing for many years. I don't want to say how many. I'm at the Jazz Festival here in Jazzaar in Switzerland.
Cool. Hey, my name is Paulo Stagnaro. I'm here playing percussion at the Jazzaar Festival. I'm Oscar's son, if this interview is going to be cropped together. And we're excited to be here in Switzerland with the whole gang. One of many experiences that challenged me and helped me grow as a musician, I would have to say, is being a part of Paquito de Rivera's sextet at a very young age. I was definitely myself and another colleague, Alex Brown, who also joined the band the same year, 2007 or 8, were around 19 and 20 years old when the rest of the band was, let's just say, a little bit older. So it was beautiful in the sense that, we kind of got that apprenticeship thing that sadly is a little bit lost nowadays in the jazz scene, especially because so many of the greats are passing on. But we had an incredible experience. I got my butt kicked many times. I had many sneers and hard stares across the stage when things went wrong, but always in a very sort of loving and also educational way. A really, really nice time of tutelage. If I had to pick one experience, hard to nail it down, but I'd say in that band is where I probably learned the hard way with some tough love in the most exponential way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, in my case, I'm from Peru, and I work with many artists. One of them was an organist at the cathedral, and he was probably one of the few people that knew how to play jazz standards. And the challenge was that he never told you what tune was he gonna play, neither the key. So you have to follow his left hand. And they used to. This is a popular Mexican comedian is called Chespirito, and then he's called the Chapulín Colorado. And then he used to have a saying as, "Follow me, the good ones." The good ones only follow me. So we used to call this guy, follow, Chapulín Colorado, because he said, "What tune are you playing, maestro?" I said, "Follow me, the good ones." You know? Yeah, in my case, I try to analyze in a different way that the musician will analyze the music. So, what does make me feel, for example, the music from Peru, that's where I'm from, the landó or the festejo or the waltz, and each of them they have a particularity in the sense of like they can communicate without words, sensuality or mystery or elegance. And if you analyze in Latin America, you see the samba and the bossa nova. One is a party like rumba style, and the other one is like very sensitive. So you could extract that vibe, that sentiment for you, and then you could add all of these little facts from each of them. I'm not talking about the music. I'm talking how you feel that you are getting from them, and put it into your identity. So you mix them up, and then you get your identity in a different way than only by playing notes.
I would say that for me, one of the most important things is realizing that music doesn't exist in a bubble or a capsule. It's something that's a reflection of life, something that's a reflection of history and the moment that it was created, which embodies everything that has to do with any culture that you're talking about, whether it's music from Morocco, Mali, Peru, Cuba, España, wherever you are. Everything that happens in a musical sense, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, reflects life. So we're talking about dance, as you mentioned, as was included in the question, food for sure, and overall, just the not only the feeling of each person, let's say the writer or the lyricist or the singer who's interpreting it, but also in many cases, in terms of the repertoire that's written, it can reflect sort of the sentiment of the people. So we can have music that's written, for party festival purposes, music that's written that becomes part of repertoire that maybe is for a funeral, music that's written for all kinds of different occasions, also religious ceremonies like we know from many Afrocentric cultures. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things, is realizing that the more you dive into cultures, not only music, you go and you travel to Sao Paulo and you watch what people eat and see how they walk and see how they talk, then you can make that sort of connection between the way the music feels and sounds, makes people feel, and the way that people interact and walk around and live their lives. Coming from two different generations of music and musicians and culture and all that stuff as my father or from my father, I'd say that, I was lucky because I got to kind of take some shortcuts, in the sense that I was exposed to a lot of great music that was, you know, everything from very traditional Peruvian music all the way through, you know, more harmonically complex music and jazz and creative music and improvisational music. I would say that one of the biggest differences, and if we're talking me to him, is that I think my father and many people from his generation are the archetype of musician that most of us strive to be, which is 50% talent, 50% hard work. You know, because this is something that kind of goes unseen a little bit, is that people think, oh, the most talented guy in the room, not the most talented guy in the room, most of the times ends up being the laziest because he has that maybe genetic disposition, so he doesn't work as hard. In my case, I would not consider myself who's someone 50-50. I'm definitely more like 20% or 30% talent and 70 or 80% discipline. And you know, and I think that's a sign of the times in the sense that my father and his generation was exposed to so much more live music all the time, playing 10, 15 gigs a week, you know. I did have some of that, but I feel like the tutelage that I had came in a nice way, half from all the records I checked out, all the people I was around, and then half from the old school stuff that I was able to take from his generation, which even though I never really studied music with him in that way, he always guided me. You know, he's always like, oh, check this out. Oh, this is this, this is this. And then, you know, kind of by default, even though I started playing music a little bit later, I did develop certain sensibilities that maybe more advanced musicians when I was a younger person maybe didn't have, just from being exposed to that stuff. So yeah, I think that's something amazing from their generation that maybe gets lost a little bit now, is like the art of the player. Pro Tools and many other things make it a little easier for some of us that maybe don't have, you know, certain talents. But I'd say that that's something that I definitely like to try to conserve, is that sort of musicality and proficiency, you know, seriousness about the instrument and the respect for the music.
For me, it's a different situation. My dad didn't want us to be musicians, but involuntarily he trained us because he played the radio since 6 a.m. and we heard Cuban music, we have Creole music, we have music from different parts of the world, tango music, 6 to 8 a.m. before we go to school. So that was a better school than the actual school. Do you know what I mean? Music school. So after years, when we became musicians, we have a repertoire that we didn't know that we had it. And so that was one of the most important things that he did in this case. So of course, it was a hard growing up in Peru because the schools are not like in the United States are as accessible, but that makes you work harder. Like Paulo said, you know, I think he has 20%. Many people, I don't know how much percent, but he's 10% talent, 90% work. So he's ahead of the game anyway. And probably, I mean, the biggest thing about this new generation is like they haven't lived what we live. So that's something that they can't do it anymore. You know, so they have parties and going to nightclubs and all that. So hopefully we'll come back.
I mean, having really come up as far as my career, you know, moving to New York at age 23, 24, I think a couple things. First of all, I have to admit that I've definitely had it easier than my dad. Let's start there. Generationally, I had a lot more tools. I had more advantages. I was able to kind of build myself in the scene through people he knew, through different, you know, sort of mediums that were accessible to me that maybe weren't around back then. As far as what New York City did for me, I was very clear about what I wanted to do when I got there, and I had the hustle already instilled. So I immediately went and started to seek out my idols. Pedrito Martinez, Samuel Torres. My father helped me facilitate. I was already kind of working in the scene, and that's where I kind of set my goal. It's like a kid that grows up watching the NBA in the 90s. They're not trying to be Bill Cartwright, no offense, Bill Cartwright. They're trying to be Michael Jordan. So this mentality will take you as far as you want it to. Of course, this is a very objective thing as far as everybody's skill, but in my case, I would say that I wanted to be Michael Jordan in the sense that I wanted to be able to express myself at a high level. That's what that means for me. And through that, you know, make people feel good through music. And I think New York, like many metropolitan cities, is sort of a breeding ground for that, because you realize that there's really only one way to get ahead. You know what I mean? That's number one, shedding, you know, showing up to the gig, trying to be a good person in every situation you can be, you know, and making people feel good. And I think that's something that in New York maybe sometimes get lost, but I feel like the cats that make it out kind of in some way, shape, or fashion, you know, fit into those categories or check those boxes.
Yeah, in my case, when I was in Peru, I was already doing a lot of recording sessions and live music. And then my wife, in this case, was the person responsible for us moving to the States. That she realized that the ceiling was too low in Peru. I didn't realize that. until I came to the States, of course. And then, so she opened the door and pushed me to look for, the level that Paulo was talking about. Try to be the best in everything that you do. Life is too short, so you have to make things quick and fast and good all the time. And music, in this case, I have helped us to develop in a family and develop music and play with the best people that we could ever find. So, well, we're still working on it. I mean, it's not like we're giving up. We're searching. We're trying to play better, and then try to be a better person.